We're talking here with Baby Doll, and this is a great honor to be able to talk with you, Baby Doll. Thanks for your time today, and maybe tell us first off just how you broke into the wrestling business.
Oh my gosh, really long story. I'll try and condense it. Both my parents were professional wrestlers in like the 50s and 60s. My mom is Lorraine Johnson. She's was tag team partners, actually tag team champions with Penny Banner. They got to travel all over. It was like an exciting life for her. And then my dad is Nick Roberts. He wrestled in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then he also promoted in Lubbock, Texas. And that's how I grew up. Was my dad was a wrestling promoter, and that was our family business. We had wrestling matches every week on Wednesday night at the Fairport Coliseum, and like everybody came to Lubbock because Texas was a really, really hot territory. In fact, at one time there was like 3, 4, maybe 5 territories just in Texas alone. And Amarillo was one of the really hot spots for the folks being the bookers and promoters out of there. We had like the Funks, the Hearts, Von Erichs came through. Andre the Giant came through like twice a year. Ric Flair, when he was, or the world champ, actually back then it was like the NWA. So it was like the NWA world champion would come through at least once a year so that you would be able to build up your heel or your babyface, whatever it was, like your top star to go against the world champion like once a year. And that's how I grew up, is like see my dad on TV. Well, I had a really huge crush on this a wrestler by the name of Gino Hernandez. And I just happened to be hearing my parents talk that they were looking for a girl to put with him just to add to his character and just the whole storyline and what they were doing in Dallas, since Valerie Prince Sunshine had taken a little bit of a sabbatical. So I took my dad's black book and I went down to a boyfriend's house and I used his phone and I called the Dallas office and David Manning answered the phone and I pitched him the idea of, well, what about me, and I'm smart and I'm pretty and maybe you could use me, and et cetera, et cetera. And they just thought it was a wonderful idea, so I got to start with Gino and worked with Gino in the world-class territory for a couple of months. And then Sunshine came back. She got all better and made her big comeback, and it was great because it was like at the Cotton Bowl and Reunion Arena, and had some really good shows with her. And the last 2 shows that I had with World Class were in Tampa and Miami, Christmas Day and the day after. And after that, I didn't have any shows. So I was trying to like get booked somewhere else, and happened to see Tally and Dusty at the show and kind of talked to them about, you know, that my time had ended in Dallas and that I was looking for somewhere else to go, and I didn't really want to go back to Lubbock and go back to school, and that maybe they had something to offer. And they both just got this really crazy look on their face, and I didn't have any idea that they were actually looking for a girl for Tully at the time, and that they'd already had a contest looking for the perfect hand, looking for the perfect girl for Tully, and had been asking for videos and pictures and everything to be sent in, and I just fit that spot. So within a couple of weeks, I was working with Tully, and we were working sold-out houses, and the rest is history. I worked with Tully, and then I went with Dusty, and then I went, let me see, it was Tully, Dusty, Flair, and then the Bisco, and then went to Kansas City and UWF, and it was a very long and prosperous road, and I've got a lot of memories, and now that I've been doing Fan Fest and Legends shows, I've been back on the road now for, about 5 years, which is crazy because my comeback has been longer than my actual career. And I've been having a great time ever since, because just getting to meet all the new guys and getting to see fans, and now my daughters are going with me, so it's a lot of fun.
I imagine so. You were there at the height of, world class, Gino Hernandez, Tully. It was a whirlwind, it sounds like. What was it like back in the for a lot of fans like me, that's when I was growing up watching wrestling. It's the good old days of wrestling. At a time when wrestling was huge here in the U.S. Talk about just what it was like. It probably felt like being a rock star to a degree.
It really was, and to say it was huge, it was for me in like the spot that I was at. We were just at the point of getting huge because WrestleMania had just started. Starcades were huge. TBS, we were going global with TBS. That was a whole new concept for everything. The internet was just getting started, which is like really crazy when you think about it. Because I was kind of thinking about that earlier today. Was that when Dusty and Tully in the Crockett office were having to deal with like booking talent and booking shows, they had never ever had to deal with the internet and like everybody knowing everything. It wasn't like you could go from town to town and everything would be different and no one would know, what you do. Like if Amarillo ran on Thursday, they didn't know what had happened in Lubbock on Wednesday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just didn't have it like what happened in like the 80s. But it's kind of like, oh, Vince ruined the business, but actually I don't think Vince did. I think it's more the internet and people knowing everything. I think that's just the mass communication of everybody. People know what happened in Philadelphia, and then the next night we're in Baltimore, and then the next night we're in Richmond, and deal like that. Everybody knew what we were doing, and it so totally changed, I think, with the internet. And everybody can kind of blame Vince, but it had to have been the internet. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
It's just different. Yeah, very different. Yeah.
You can't go out there and have a match like what you did in like the 70s and 80s. The audiences have changed. Everything has changed. You can't have Dusty and Flair wrestle every single night. That was what was so special about it, because we now had the technology to save it. Before, we were just taping over shows and taping over shows. No one thought to save this stuff like what we're doing now. Yeah. And to save it and be chronicled. Things were just so totally different. We had no idea. Had no clue it was going to be like this.
Yeah, yeah. So what brings you back? You said your career, and then you stopped for a while. You have a family, everything else, and then 5 years ago, you get back into the business. What got you back in the business?
Well, it was really crazy because there was a friend of mine that lives up by Charlotte. His name is Greg Price. He has the NWA Legends Fan Fest, and they are like the show of the year for like wrestling fans and wrestlers and everybody getting together. He just puts on a heck of a deal for everybody. It's like a 3-day weekend in Charlotte. Well, this time it was up in Rockville, Maryland. And there was a guy up there that works with Greg. His name was Timber. And Timber and I hit it off that weekend. I mean, we just had the best time and hung out and told stories and just had the best time, just buddy. And he literally sat down and asked me, like, dog, you look so good. Why are you at Joplin, Missouri all by yourself? He said, the Mid-Atlantic area is where you want to be, because he said, there's so many wrestling promoters, there's so many wrestling promotions, there's guys that love to work with you, there's fans that are wanting to see you. Get out there and do something. So he smacked me on the butt. And then I went back to Joplin, Missouri after that show and started making some phone calls and started talking with Marvin Ward, and got booked on 4 shows. There were 2 in September, and then 1 in October and 1 in November. And I came out there and I got hooked. That was it. Within 6 months, I packed up my kids, packed up my family, packed up my belongings, moved to North Carolina, and let me see, it would have been April of 2007.
Okay.
And hit the road ever since. And then I was on Facebook and saw Marvin and saw where he's got AWE started back, and I want to be, hit the same, head on, feet first, let's go with this, because, he wants to do the Legends aspect of this, and with Virginia, like, what's being done in North Carolina, maybe it could be done in Virginia in a totally different aspect, because what wasn't hotter than, like, Norfolk, Richmond back in the day, and it's just crazy, why somebody isn't going to take advantage of the fans that are out there to give the people what they really want to see. And I think Marvin's got a grasp on it, and I'm excited, and I want to see what he's got to show us.
I was going to ask how you got hooked up with Marvin. He's a reason you got back into this. That's interesting to know that he's one of the reasons that you got hooked back up in the business.
It really is, because we had 4 shows, and that was the first time that I really, because see, when my kids were little, I really didn't watch wrestling, because Vince had gone the angle, like, with the girls that were really doing the risque stuff, like with Marlena and Sable, and the girls were portraying what I wanted my very young girls to see, so I just really didn't watch during that time. And then whenever I got back and did the shows with Marvin, oh my gosh, he had like my friends on there. You had like Jim Cornette, Rock and Roll Express, and it was crazy to see everybody and get to meet a whole bunch of new people that I got to meet, like Velvet Sky, she was bringing to Talia Madison back then, but I got to meet Jamie, I got to meet Talia, and you know, and April Hunter, oh my gosh, she's amazing. And you know, Marvin just had the best talent on the shows, and who couldn't get hooked on that? So yeah, it's as much fun for me as it is for the fans, and those are the shows that I like to be on, it's where everybody's having a really good time and being entertained and go away with a smile and can't wait for next time.
Well, for our fans listening in here, we will have AWE will have Baby Doll very involved this year through a number of shows, and Baby Doll, hey, we look forward to seeing you out there at the matches.
Yeah, and you're probably going, oh my God, will she ever shut up? But I'm really excited about this. I am, and I know that like with doing with the legend shows and the fan fest that I've done, it does my heart so good to see the fans that come out that remember us, you know, and they can watch YouTube, and that, you know, they actually tear up because they remember sitting on the floor of the living room on like Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon watching TBS or the Mid-Atlantic or the worldwide shows, and getting so enthralled in that show and, you know, hating the Russians and loving the Rock and Roll Express and loving Magno TA, and don't know whether you love or hate Dusty, but you wanted him to win anyway, and Flair and Tolly and Arn and everybody, and for me to see their faces and for them to remember, you know, like maybe sitting on the couch with their grandparents and their grandma get mad at that TV so mad, and she go over there and shut off and swear never to watch wrestling again, but then, by God, it was on the next week, you know, or little kids cry because David Crockett would be going, fans, don't forget to tune in next week. We'll continue taping this show. You won't miss a minute of action, but for today, we got to go. See you next week. Bye. And then crying because you wanted to see what happened in that match, and you turned in the next week to see what happens. That's what I want to see happen again. It may not be like what we had in like the mid-'80s, late '80s, you know, that magical time, but let's take that concept and that idea and just make it better. And I think Marvin has the tools to do it. There's a lot of talent out there, and I think that with AWE, I expect a lot of good things from you guys.